The Tunnel by Raw Life Ishmael. The Collapse. Candlelight.
By the 6th day, Jake no longer counted the hours. A week earlier, he had entered the tunnel alone, curious to see where it led. During his exploration, a powerful storm moved through the area. Without warning, part of the tunnel collapsed behind him, sealing the entrance he had used. At first, he panicked. He ran through the tunnel looking for another way out. He yelled until his throat hurt. He prayed. He cursed. He imagined every worst-case scenario his mind could create. None of it changed anything. After exhausting himself physically and mentally, he finally sat down. Then he sat some more. Eventually, he stopped fighting the reality of where he was. As the days passed, Jake explored deeper into the tunnel. Before his flashlight finally died, he discovered something unexpected. Food. Old supplies. Evidence that someone else had once been there and somehow managed to survive long enough to make themselves comfortable. Among the discoveries was a small resting area and 3 half-melted candles. So on the 6th day, Jake sat quietly near the candles with his eyes closed. Then he heard a scream. 3 days earlier, Crystal had been exploring the tunnel with 4 friends. One of them discovered a large rusted lever sticking out from the wall. Against everyone's better judgment, he pulled it. The ground shook. Stone cracked. Before Crystal could react, part of the tunnel collapsed around her, separating her from the others. "Crystal!" "I'm here. We'll go get help." Their voices echoed through the darkness, then faded, then disappeared. At first, she waited. Then she worried. Then she panicked. The longer she sat alone, the worse her thoughts became. Eventually, she grabbed her backpack and started moving. The backpack contained food, water, matches, and a small flashlight. The flashlight became her lifeline. Hours passed, maybe longer. She had no way of knowing. The tunnel seemed endless. Then she saw something. The beam from her flashlight revealed what appeared to be a small resting area. Someone had clearly spent time there. 3 half-melted candles sat near the wall. Crystal carefully approached. Her flashlight had already begun to dim from weak batteries. She knelt down, struck a match, and lit one of the candles. Warm light spread through the darkness. She looked up and screamed. A man sat several feet away, cross-legged, motionless. His eyes closed as though he were meditating. The man calmly opened his eyes. "I knew someone would find me." Crystal stared at him. "What?" She looked around frantically. "I'm trapped in here. Can you help me get out? How did you get here?" The man smiled softly. "I came here exploring to see where this tunnel led and found myself pretty much where you are now." He glanced at his watch. "My entrance collapsed, so I kept walking deeper into the tunnel. I've been here 6 days now, according to my watch." He smiled. "Somehow I'm still ticking." Crystal stared at him. "What's funny? Are you crazy?" She turned toward the darkness. "Help!" Her voice echoed through the tunnel. "Somebody help!" Nothing answered. The man nodded. "I understand. I was just like you at first. My mind was racing. My heart was beating out of my chest. I imagined every worst-case scenario possible. I was convinced nobody would ever find me. Crystal crossed her arms. And it appears your thoughts were correct. The man closed his eyes. I died here. Crystal froze. The man smiled softly, not in the sense of a physical death. She let out an annoyed breath. Then don't say things like that. I'm serious. He opened his eyes again. I yelled and cried. I even cursed God after begging for help that didn't come within the first few hours. He shrugged. Eventually, I exhausted myself. The tunnel grew quiet. So I sat still. For how long? Crystal asked. Jake laughed. Hours, maybe days. Hard to tell. And then I began walking deeper into the tunnel. He looked around. I found things I didn't expect to find before my flashlight died. Like what? Food. Crystal blinked. Food? Jake laughed. Apparently somebody else has been here before and they got pretty comfortable. Crystal looked around the resting area again. For the first time, she wondered who had been there before them. Jake leaned back against the wall. And, for the record, I was wrong. About what? My initial thoughts. He pointed toward her. And you were wrong, too. How? You said nobody found me. Crystal stared at him. Jake smiled. But someone did. He pointed at her. You did. Crystal rolled her eyes. Yeah, but I'm trapped too. Jake nodded. True. A slight smile appeared on his face. But now there's two of us. And it said, 2 minds are better than one. Crystal looked at him with a look that clearly said, Fuck you. You are crazy. This isn't a joking matter. How can you sit there that calm? Do you even care if you die here? Jake smiled. I told you. I already did. Look, that shit is not funny. I'm not trying to frighten you more than what you already are, he said. I'm saying that person who panicked and screamed in fear died some days ago. He folded his hands. That didn't do anything except make the situation worse. If anything, had I not calmed down, I probably would have literally died of a heart attack. Jake smiled again. Then you'd really be talking to a ghost. Crystal rolled her eyes and sat beside her backpack. As she searched through it, Jake's eyes widened. Wow. What? Water. He laughed. I drank the last of mine 2 days ago. Crystal unscrewed the bottle. I hope you enjoyed it and savored every last drop. Jake closed his eyes. Indeed I did. Crystal smirked and took an exaggerated sip. After a moment, she looked over at him. That shit's not funny, is it? She lightly tapped him on the hand with the bottle and held it out. Jake opened his eyes. It is now that you've given me some. For the first time since finding him, Crystal laughed. And for the first time in 6 days, Jake wasn't alone. Shared silence. The laughter faded, and the tunnel grew quiet again. Jake took a small drink of water before screwing the cap back onto the bottle and handing it back to Crystal. Thank you, he said. I sincerely appreciate it. You're welcome. I have more. You can finish that one if you want. Jake shook his head. I'm good for now. Since being here, I've learned to pace myself. And like you said, savor the moment. They both laughed. For a while, neither of them spoke. The candlelight flickered against the stone walls. Crystal stared at the flame. Jake closed his eyes. Finally, Crystal broke the silence. What's your name? Jake. Jake? She laughed. You look like a Jake. Jake opened one eye. What exactly does that mean? Crystal smiled. I mean, you look like you're in your late 50s, and Jake sounds like one of those old-school names. She laughed again. Jake. What? Do you work for State Farm? Jake chuckled. So you do have a sense of humor. Crystal smirked. Barely. Jake pointed at her. And what's your name? Adele Givens? You seem like such a classy lady. Jake laughed. Crystal frowned. What's funny? Jake laughed. Adele Givens is an old-school comedian. He pointed at her again. I understand why that went over your head. Crystal rolled her eyes. Well, anyway, no. My name is not no damn Adele. She pointed back at him. It's Crystal. Jake nodded. Nice to meet you, Crystal. And I'm not giving you my full government name. I don't know you like that. Jake laughed. That's fair. I didn't give you mine either. The two of them sat quietly for a while. Every so often, Crystal would get up and pace around the small area, muttering under her breath. She would walk one direction, stop, look down the tunnel, sigh, and walk back. A few minutes later, she'd do it again. Jake watched her for a moment. You've done that 6 times. Crystal stopped. Done what? Walked the exact same path. She looked down. I can't sit still. I noticed.
Good for you.
Jake laughed. Crystal started pacing again. You know, Jake said, I used to do the same thing. She stopped. What changed? Jake shrugged. My feet got tired. Crystal couldn't help but laugh. That's your wisdom. Your feet got tired. Sometimes wisdom isn't as deep as people think. He stretched his arms above his head. Sometimes you're just tired of being tired. Crystal sat back down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jake stood up. What are you doing? Exercise. Crystal stared at him. Exercise? Jake nodded. Yep. We're trapped in a tunnel. I noticed. And you're exercising? Jake dropped down and started doing push-ups. 1. Crystal shook her head. You're insane. 2. I'm serious. 3. You have officially lost your mind. Jake laughed and finished his set. When he stood up, he stretched before doing a few jumping jacks. Crystal stared at him the entire time. Finally, he sat back down. Feel better? She asked. A little. Why? Jake shrugged. Because if I'm getting out of here, I'd like my knees to still work when it happens. Crystal laughed, despite herself. The sound echoed softly through the tunnel. Jake smiled. There she is. There who is? The woman who laughs. Crystal rolled her eyes. Don't make this weird. I'm not. Good. The candle crackled softly. The silence returned. but it felt different now. Not as heavy. Not as lonely. Crystal looked over at Jake. For the first time since she'd become trapped, she wasn't thinking about the collapse. She wasn't thinking about dying. She wasn't thinking about how long it might take for help to arrive. She was thinking about the strange man sitting across from her, who somehow seemed completely at peace, in a place that should have terrified him. And that confused her more than the tunnel itself. Jake looked at his watch. It's officially 7 days right now. Crystal looked over at him. Jake smiled. And to think, I get to share this moment with Crystal when I thought I'd never see anyone again. Crystal looked at him. Please don't be offended if I say this is not my pleasure. Jake laughed. Maybe not, but I'm grateful for you. He looked around the tunnel. I've spent enough time sitting in here thinking about all the things I've taken for granted. Like what? Crystal asked. Jake smiled. Watching birds fly, looking at clouds, fresh food. He paused. Hell, even toilets! Crystal immediately nodded. Yes, I would love a toilet right now. Well, Jake said, pointing toward a dark corner of the tunnel. Don't be shy. There's a corner over there. Crystal looked where he pointed. Jake continued. Feel free to use a rock and scribble your name over there. I promise I won't go near it. Crystal laughed sarcastically. I'm serious. I have to relieve myself. Jake nodded. I know. He shrugged. I don't know how long we're going to be here together, Crystal, but sooner or later, you're going to have to. His expression softened. I'll respect your privacy. Then he grinned. Hell, I'll even make sure nobody else in here looks at you. Crystal shook her head. You are far from funny right now, Richard Pryor. She grabbed one of the candles and started walking toward the corner. Before she got too far, she blew the candle out. Hey, Jake said. Crystal didn't turn around. I'll let there be light when I'm done. Jake smiled. Fair enough. He closed his eyes again while Crystal disappeared into the darkness. What we hold on to. Time went by. This was Crystal's third day trapped inside the tunnel. She sat with her back against the wall while Jake stretched and jogged in place for a few moments. I was supposed to start a new job yesterday, Crystal said. So much for that. Jake listened quietly. And I can't believe nobody has found me yet. Her voice began to crack. My friends probably planned this. Maybe they never really liked me. There's no other reason I'd still be here. She looked down the tunnel. I haven't heard any rescuers. I haven't heard anything. Her breathing quickened. Why is this happening to me? The words echoed through the darkness. Then Crystal broke down. She buried her face in her hands and cried. Jake sat quietly. A single tear rolled down his own face. I understand, he said softly. Crystal looked up. For the first time, she noticed the tears in his eyes. Jake nodded. I understand. Then he began taking slow, deep breaths. In, out. In, out. Crystal watched him for a moment. Then she closed her eyes and joined him. Slow breaths. Deep breaths. One after another. Gradually, her breathing settled. The panic loosened its grip. The two of them sat there quietly for what felt like hours. Only one candle remained. Its small flame flickered against the stone walls. As they sat there, both of them imagined things beyond the tunnel. Sunlight. Birds. Clouds. People they missed. People they loved. People they would give anything to see again. Finally, Jake spoke. "I'm thinking about everything I wish I'd done in my younger years." Crystal listened. "And everything I'm still capable of attempting if I get out of here." He smiled softly. "Things I probably never would have thought about if I hadn't ended up in this tunnel." The candle crackled. Jake looked into the flame. "Maybe this isn't happening to us." Crystal raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Jake shrugged. "Maybe it's happening for us." Crystal pulled her knees closer to her chest. She thought about that for a while. "I've thought about things I'd love to do, and places I'd love to see." Her voice trembled. "But it tortures me." She looked around at the darkness. "Because every time I do, all I see are these walls." Tears formed in her eyes again. Jake nodded. "Those were my exact thoughts during the first few days." He pointed upward. "Then I started letting those thoughts come and go like the clouds I imagined." Crystal listened. "I held on to one thought." "What thought?" Jake smiled. "The thought that someone would find me." He looked at her. "I held on to it as if it had already happened." Crystal shook her head. "And now you have a crystal." Jake laughed. "Exactly." She looked away. "What good am I to you if neither of us can get out of here?" Jake answered without hesitation. "You're the confirmation I needed." Crystal frowned. "Confirmation of what?" "That everything is going to be fine." She stared at him. Jake leaned back against the wall. "My thoughts were my greatest enemy a few days ago." He paused. "Until I started letting the dreadful ones go and focusing on what I actually wanted." His eyes drifted toward the darkness. "I felt alone." His voice grew quieter, like I'd never see anyone again. Then he looked at her. "And now you're here." The tunnel fell silent. Jake continued. "I feel like the longer I hold a thought to be true, the more likely it becomes." He smiled. "If I have to think anyway, and we all do, I may as well think thoughts that benefit me." He pointed around the tunnel. "Right now, what's more useful? Thoughts about dying here, or thoughts about where we'd rather be?" Crystal didn't answer. Jake laughed softly. "Trust me, I had some truly demonic thoughts running through my head when I first got here." Crystal smirked. "I believe that." "I'm serious." Jake shook his head. "I was going crazy." He tapped his chest. "And at the time, those thoughts were true enough to give a man a heart attack." The candle flickered. "So if I'm going to be delusional," Jake said with a grin, "it's going to be for my well-being regardless of what things look like on the surface." Crystal sat quietly. For a long time she simply looked at him. Not like she had before. There was warmth in her eyes now. Finally, she spoke. "Would you mind if I sat a little closer?" Jake looked up. He stretched his arms outward dramatically. "It's crowded enough in here already. Do we really have to get closer?" Crystal laughed. Jake smiled and gestured for her to come over. She moved beside him and rested her head gently against his shoulder. Neither of them spoke for a while. Jake looked into the candle flame. "You know what I realized in here?" Crystal looked up. "What?" Jake smiled softly. "I spent too much time worrying and not enough time loving life." The tunnel fell silent. Jake shrugged. "I worried about things that never happened, feared things that never came, carried problems that only existed in my head." He looked around at the darkness. "And then I ended up trapped in a tunnel." Crystal laughed through her tears. "That's a hell of a place to learn that lesson." Jake nodded. "Yeah." He smiled, but better late than never. The candle flickered between them. "If I get out of here, I'm going to spend a lot less time worrying and a lot more time loving life." Crystal sat quietly. For once she didn't have a sarcastic response. She simply nodded. Then Crystal smiled. "Thank you." Jake nodded. "You're welcome." She looked down at the last remaining candle. "And I'm grateful you're trapped here with me." They both chuckled. Crystal smiled again. "And now it's sincerely my pleasure to be here with you on your 7th day." Jake smiled. Crystal smiled. And for a moment, neither of them felt trapped at all. New perspective. A few more hours passed. The last candle burned lower and lower, until finally the flame disappeared. Darkness. Complete darkness. Neither of them could see anything. Crystal sat beside Jake, their hands clasped together. The tunnel was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Slow breaths. Deep breaths. The same way Jake had taught her. For a while they simply sat there. Then Crystal tilted her head. "Jake." "What?" "Do you hear that?" The two of them listened. At first there was nothing. Then, faintly, somewhere in the distance, voices. Jake smiled. "Yeah." Crystal immediately jumped to her feet. Her heart raced. "Help!" she yelled. The voices grew louder. "Help! I'm here!" More voices answered. The sound echoed through the tunnel. "They hear me!" Crystal started moving toward the sound. Carefully at first. Then faster. "Crystal!" voices called. "Yes, I'm here!" She laughed and cried at the same time. "Please, I'm over here." Without realizing it, she let go of Jake's hand. Jake stood and tried to follow her voice through the darkness. "Crystal?" But her voice was already farther away. The tunnel twisted and turned in different directions. "Crystal!" She heard him. She stopped, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. For a moment, she stood perfectly still. One tear rolled down her cheek. Then flashlights appeared. Rescuers. Hands reached toward her. "We've got you." Crystal pointed into the darkness. "Please find Jake." They placed her into an ambulance. The last thing she remembered was asking about him again. Then, exhaustion finally pulled her into sleep. Later that evening, Crystal slowly opened her eyes. The room was quiet. A steady beep came from a monitor beside her bed. An IV was attached to her arm. For a moment, she simply stared at the ceiling. Then everything came rushing back. The tunnel. Jake. The rescue. Crystal immediately looked around. A television mounted on the wall was playing the evening news. The reporter stood near the tunnel entrance. And in what rescuers are calling a miracle, a second survivor has been found alive. Crystal sat upright. The screen changed to footage of rescue workers helping Jake toward an ambulance. Tears instantly filled her eyes. The reporter continued. 55-year-old Jake Phillips, who had been trapped for 7 days, was rescued from a different section of the tunnel system than 29-year-old Crystal Simmons. Crystal covered her mouth. The reporter glanced down at her notes. When asked what kept him going during those 7 days, Jake repeatedly gave the same answer. Crystal stared at the television. The reporter smiled. He said, "Love life, Crystal. Love life." A laugh escaped through Crystal's tears. She shook her head. Crazy old man. More tears rolled down her cheeks. Outside the hospital window, clouds drifted slowly across a bright blue sky. Crystal looked at them for a long moment. Then she smiled. For the first time in days, she noticed the clouds. The end.